Hi, Karen Curry Parker here with your weekly Human Design Evolution Report. We are in the final week of the creative quarter of the template. The human design year is split into 4 quarters. Each quarter has a different part of the creative process for whatever it is that we are building on each calendar year. This quarter that we've been in has been all about translating divine spark, inspiration, ideas, thoughts, our connection with the muse, our inner connection to the flow of source through us. We have been putting language to this spark of divinity within us. It's language that really sets us apart and makes us human. And in the human design system, the focus of language is the throat center, or in the traditional chakra system, it's the throat chakra. And it's through the throat center that we begin the process of articulating. We share stories about who we are, where we've been, who we hope to be. We lead. We lead through sharing resources. We lead through giving direction to heart. We share our enthusiasm. We share our mastery. We share signals that let each other know when the timing is right for us to unify around new, innovative, common ideas. We share plans. We share new ways of thinking. We share stories. We share experience. We share our connection to source, all through the voice. Most importantly, as we come to the end of this quarter, we share the story of who we are. We share the retelling of our personal narrative. And this week, as the sun moves from the gate 31, the gate of democratic leadership, into the gate 33, the gate of retelling, our goal in this final week of this important quarter that really sets the stage and the tone for what we're going to manifest and create for the rest of the year, the sun is asking us to put language to the story of who we are, to lead each other into a bigger, stronger, more collective story that reflects the heart of who we are as human beings, the heart of who each and every one of us is individually. This sets us up for next week, where we move into the next quarter, the quarter of manifestation, where we begin to finally begin to see the fruits of our labor. We begin to put action to the words that we've been sharing in so many interesting ways over the last couple of months. So everything that we are created, we have been talking about, every conscious conversation we've been having, every bit of inner dialogue, every aspect of our personal narrative is an important part of building a collective narrative that sets the tone and direction for where we're going. As we move into next week, the nodal themes shift, our capacity to generate new ideas, to be more inspired, expands, and our ability to really start taking action on everything we've been dreaming about for the last few months begins to solidify. So that's good news. I should add, it is 2020, so do be prepared that even if you think you know where you're headed, there might be a little couple of plot twists along the way. So our goal here is to use the words of use our personal narrative to set the tone and the direction, but to also stay fluid, to stay responsive, and to stay resilient, because it's our capacity to keep landing on our feet and keep moving forward from the heart that's going to continue to support all of us in evolving forward during this incredibly transformative time that we're in right now. So that's the big part, the big news this week. So I certainly would say for you this week, make sure that you take some time before next week to really review what have you been talking about the last few months? What language have you been giving to your experiences? What stories are you holding? What narratives are you telling? Are you telling a story about yourself that's big enough to call you forward, that maybe is going to give you enough of a call so that you are leaping out of bed with enthusiasm in the morning? Maybe not so much to do something, but to be the fullest expression of who you are. Does the sun rising excite you because there's a new possibility of you stepping into a bigger story happening each and every day? That story that you're telling, that narrative that you're holding about yourself, sets the tone and the direction for where you're headed. I've said that like 5 times now because it's so flippin' important. If you find yourself stuck in an old story, if you find yourself using your story as an excuse for why you can't get out of your comfort zone and push yourself, I don't want to say push, align yourself with a bigger potential of who you are, then your story's not big enough. You know, it's interesting to me that when I coach people and people feel stuck and paralyzed, we always think, oh, it's because I have self-sabotage and I've got limitations and blocks. I often find that one of the biggest reasons why we get stuck is actually because we have a tendency to not tell a story that's big enough and true enough about the power of who we are. So make sure you're telling a big enough story that's going to call you forward, that's going to give you permission to go that last little bit of distance. You know, I went hiking with my daughter last week, and we did a 4.8 mile up the hill hike, and that's pretty far for her as an 11-year-old. And we literally were doing these last few switchbacks before we got to the crest of this hill. And literally on the last switchback, my daughter turned to me and she says, I'm done, I want to go home. And I said, honey, we're like right at the top, just keep going. We have a tendency to stop ourselves on that last switchback because it is sometimes a little bit challenging and you don't always know exactly where it's going to go. Having a big enough story, a story that really inspires you, can call you forward when you're on that last switchback. And it's not so much about the will and the force of being called forward and dragging yourself up the hill. It's about getting yourself up the hill so that you can look at the story you've been telling, be proud that you fulfilled it, and begin to explore how you can expand that even more. The imperative of the universe living through you is growth and expansion. And if you're not growing and expanding, you're not living. You're heading down the path, dying. So let's focus on how do we tell stories that are big enough to call us forward, that support us when we're on that last switchback, to keep going, to keep pushing forward, to keep aligning with something bigger than perhaps we're willing to create for ourselves, or perhaps that we can create for ourselves by ourselves, but that maybe causes us to unify our energy with others so that we can collectively, through the expansion in consciousness and the shifts in our stories, move ourselves forward. That's the energy of this week in a nutshell, is the final place where we start to put language and words to divine spark so that we can begin the process of, through those words, through that language, through those stories, begin to change the nature of collective consciousness, change the nature of what we create in response to that consciousness, and expand the possibilities, expand the story of humanity in the world as it is today. So I hope you have a really good week this week. There's a lot going on, but I don't want to focus on anything else other than tell a darn good story about your life. Tell a darn good story about who you are. Tell a story that's bigger and better than anything in the past that may have kept you from living true to that story. And make sure that story you're telling, that story you're sharing with others about who you are, is a story that's really worthy of the magnificence and the power and the lovability and the value, the preciousness of who you truly are. Have a great week. I'll talk to you next week. Bye.